everybody, how are you guys doing today? My name is Nick, otherwise known here as Avialence, and welcome to the Bright Lord DLC. This is actually the highly anticipated DLC for Shadow of Mordor, or as many call it officially, Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor, which was the surprise hit from last year. To go ahead and set the stage, I actually really enjoyed Shadow of Mordor last year. It kind of came out of left field, is what I had said here on YouTube, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time with the game, despite a couple problems that I had with it, such as the story, the repetitive locations, and a few issues with the final boss encounter, right? It wasn't up to snuff, so to speak, but it was still an enjoyable game, and it really was my Assassin's Creed last year, because Unity was one of those disappointments that I actually still haven't gone back and played, even though I've heard it's been quite fixed up by this point in time. But anyway, I digress. So today we're looking at the Bright Lord DLC. This is the highly anticipated DLC, which focuses on Celebrimbor. Now, for those of you who aren't aware, Celebrimbor is the wraith that inhabits Talion's body in the game, and he is also the creator of the Rings of Power in the Lord of the Rings universe. He's a big deal, and he's a character that really hasn't been explored in, most of the media, those being the movies and, of course, the video games. And, it was something I was really, really excited for. Now, since I enjoyed Shadow of Mordor so much, and despite the story having a couple flaws in a few of the boss encounters that you face, I did want to go ahead and purchase the Season Pass. This is actually the 4th Season Pass I've ever bought. I typically don't buy these Season Passes because I don't believe in the idea. But when it came down to the DLC for Shadow of Mordor, it was a new studio, it was someone who had really done a great job with the game, and I wanted to support it. So I went ahead and I picked up that Season Pass. And there was Lords of the Hunt DLC which came out. I played the first hour of it, actually planned on doing a YouTube video about it. Ended up not doing it because I was so disappointed in the DLC. And when it came down to Bright Lords, I played through the first 3 or 4, probably 3 hours, I want to say 3.5 hours of the DLC this morning, which is footage you guys are seeing now, and unfortunately, I did not enjoy any of it. As a matter of fact, I probably will not even go back to complete the DLC. It was very much a letdown for me, and this is a DLC I was really excited for, and after reading a lot of articles and various notions and points that the developers had discussed from Monolith with GameSpot and IGN, focusing on making combat more challenging, making sure abilities felt a little different, and things played a little different, as well as, improving the boss fights and story elements that were in this DLC, fixing, the problems that we had with Shadow of Mordor. Unfortunately, none of that is really executed in the way I had hoped so. So in, the Bright Lord DLC, you're going to be playing in the same map. As you can see, the dirt and dust and red cloudiness are all around you. So it is the exact same map for the most part. All the same ruins are going to be there. The only difference is you are going to be constructing the towers that you saw in the main campaign of the game, this time around, because it is the first time around. Now, one thing that I was a little disappointed by with this DLC is the story, because it does feel non-existent after playing about 3.5 hours of the DLC. You have a starting cutscene with a couple bits of dialogue, some of which you saw at the beginning of this video during my introduction, and that was it. And then you're thrown into this world and you're told to rebuild towers, and you don't necessarily know why. There's a lot of interesting places where I felt the story could have been fleshed out, namely his corruption by the ring. As you saw at the beginning of this quest, Sauron is sitting there talking to us because we did take the ring, and you'll see, Celebrimbor's anger starting to speak out as he dominates more towers and orcs in this campaign. So it's something that's actually really cool. Now, I was expecting the fact that Celebrimbor, didn't die, so to speak, or having the wraith abilities and things were going to be a little more explained in this DLC, kind of fleshing out the prequel, so to speak, to Shadow of Mordor, and unfortunately they are not thus far, after about 3.5 hours into the game, or into the DLC, rather. So unfortunately they were not fleshed out a lot, and as you can see, a lot of the gameplay is focused on branding. So you have a couple new abilities in here. You will be able to do the brand execute, so to speak. So where you could similarly knock an orc down and then execute him with your sword, you can now brand him with that. You also have a summon ability, as you can see on the left of the D-pad, and you'll see it in action here in a bit, where you can summon Uruk to fight for you. You can only summon 5. If there's any captains in the area, those captains will be part of those 5. But you cannot have more than 5 in the summon pool. Now, in order to heal in this game, you will be destroying destroying the people you've branded, right? So the Uruks and the Orcs you've branded, and that will efficiently kill them, and then heal you for a portion of your health. And one thing that was really disappointing with that is I've spent all this time sitting and branding all of these Uruks. There was one situation where I branded about 20 of them, and we were working on taking down a chieftain, and very similar to this situation actually. And I had to heal. And I went ahead and I pulled the kill move down on the D-pad to heal myself so that I would not die. And lo and behold, every single one of those Uruks died, and then, as you guys know, with Shadow of Mordor, hundreds more rushed in that I then had to re-dominate to have a chance against the boss. So that was a little bit rough. That was a little bit rough, rather. And when it came down to it, all of the abilities that have been added focus on branding. So now you've got a Shadow Strike brand, you've got the Knockdown brand, and you've also got the One Ring. And the One Ring is probably the most disappointing part about this DLC. Here I am thinking that we'll use the One Ring to be able to become invisible, things along those lines, or have some really nifty powers. And quite frankly, you do not have those abilities. The One Ring is something that you charge by branding, so you must brand to charge the ring. And then after charging the One Ring, which takes quite some time and quite a lot of brands, you can then activate it by clicking in your left and right thumbstick to give you unlimited executions in slow-mo movement. It's the exact same ability we had for Talion with slow motion added. It gives you unlimited arrows and things along those lines too. But here you are thinking that you're going to have, for example, physical arrows, or be able to utilize the bow a bit more, because Celebrimbor actually cannot use slow motion when he's in there with the bow. You can't use your focus anymore. So, the bow's kind of useless, and a lot of these captains and stuff I was facing are actually immune to ranged. The only other perk of the One Ring ability is that these captains' immunities and abilities are no longer effective. So let's say you wanted to stealth assassinate one of these captains, right? And you couldn't do that because he's immune. Well, if you use the One Ring and then do an assassination, it would work. Now, the idea behind that is, oh hey, you've got a way, or a tool, so to speak, to take out some of these captains. And realistically, it only works about half the time. While using the One Ring, I noticed that a lot of my archery abilities still were not affecting captains, and that was something that I was a little kind of bent out of shape over with, because I personally don't use archery in this game whatsoever. Now, with the Nemesis system, it's the exact same. You're going to have war chiefs. The campaign is going to revolve around you dominating and creating your own army. I think the one thing that's nice that they did add is when dominating and creating your own army, you will find that they actually walk around and do exist. So if you're in a friendly area, you're going to see a lot more patrols that are your friendlies and not enemies, which I thought was quite nice, because it makes you feel like you're controlling part of the map, and thus truly controlling part of the Nemesis system. Now, when it came down to a lot of the Nemesis system aspects, much of it is the same. There's really no big changes that are going to be happening outside of the fact that now your, allies, so to speak, show up on the map. And there's also no really interesting levels, abilities, or progress. You've got the new branding abilities, the new branding Shadow Strike, the AoE brand, which is basically the Wraith Flash. I believe that's the original one, but now it has a chance to brand a couple opponents in your area. And the lack of the One Ring being very powerful. Those are the only new abilities you have, and you aren't going to progress through an ability tree. You're actually instantly going to have every ability maxed out and unlocked. So there's really not a sense of progression when it comes to playing as a new character. And here you are trying to utilize all these Wrath abilities, Wrath, whatever you want to call it. And I felt like there was an opportunity for a really cool story here, right? Where Celebrimbor is learning to harness these abilities. He's learning the One Ring, and he's trying to understand, what his place is in this world against Sauron. And I felt like there could have been so much more in this game that would have, or I guess in this DLC, that would have fleshed out that story, and it's extremely unfortunate that is something that didn't exist. So I was a little bent out of shape about that. The difficulty was something I was also looking forward to. They were saying that Celebrimbor is going to be more fragile, and since he is an elf, but more elegant in combat. And realistically, he is more fragile, but he's not more elegant in combat. It's all about branding. If you don't brand in this DLC, you're going to die. There's really no way to get around it. Many of the abilities revolve around branding. If you don't brand, everything's going to come after you, and all of the guys that you do brand, you will frequently sacrifice in order to rebrand an army in order to get past a certain objective. It's very tedious, and since it revolves so much around branding, and it really takes out the option of me approaching a situation how I like, it's extremely frustrating, and it honestly makes this DLC less fun than the actual game. I actually considered, after playing the first around 3.5 hours of this game, or I guess this game's DLC for the Bright Lord, I actually considered going back and just starting a new campaign in Shadow of Mordor itself, because I had a severe lack of options when it came to dealing with various situations. Very, very frustrating. Now here I am, looking at a couple collectibles and stuff. You've got One Ring quests, which are going to improve the rate at which the One Ring, advances, so to speak, or sucks up energy. It's not really going to give you any special abilities, at least the one I did not. It's just so disappointing. Here you are, you're Celebrimbor, you are the creator of the rings, you have the One Ring in your possession, right? And you don't feel any more powerful than Talion. As a matter of fact, you feel less powerful than Talion, and that's something that was extremely disappointing. Not only that, but the story isn't exploring Celebrimbor himself. It's not exploring anything. Essentially, I feel like Talion with the Celebrimbor skin in a different timeline, because I'm on the same map doing the same thing I would be in the main campaign. And since it's all focused on branding, it takes the fun out of the game because you have a lack of options. Realistically, guys, if you haven't bought the Season Pass already, or if you are looking for a different experience compared to the base game, this is not the DLC for you. And I was very much looking forward to this, and unfortunately, that is not the actual truth here. It was not what I expected, and I'm very disappointed by it. If you're looking for more Shadow of Mordor to play, though, I mean, this is fun for those of you who really do enjoy the branding and the stealth aspects of it. Granted, I was a little rusty on the combat when I went in, but if you're looking for more Shadow of Mordor, this is definitely a way to get it. I probably won't be playing through the rest of the game, to be perfectly honest with you, at least this DLC part of the game, just because of how disappointing the story was for me, because I had that initial cutscene, and then past that, I didn't really have much. So I don't know, guys. Regardless, this is just something I wanted to go ahead and post a video about, mainly due to the disappointment. It seems like a lot of games lately have been doing disappointment. I was planning on doing the Order 1886 stuff as well, and, well, let's just say that wasn't the best thing in the world either. So, I wanted a story, I wanted a unique gameplay and explanation as far as everything worked with Celebrimbor, and all I got was a punishing, drab environment with no explanation whatsoever. So that's kind of the summary of the Bright Lord DLC. If you're looking for more Lord of the Rings Shadow of Mordor, or I guess Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor, excuse me, this would be the DLC for you. However, I honestly would recommend you just go back to the base campaign, maybe create a hard mode for yourself with a little less HUD or a couple restrictions, and enjoy it that way. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I appreciate the views, and if you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you feel differently about the DLC, please discuss it in the comments below. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel for gaming commentary whenever I can go ahead and release it here on the channel. Thanks for watching, guys. As always, my name is Nick, otherwise known here as Avialence, and I will talk to you guys on Twitch throughout the week, and see you in the next video.